Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacey and Phil Thompson.
Hey folks, and welcome again to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.
Hi, my name is Steve Lacey.
And my name is Phil Thompson. Thanks for joining us again on our weekly little podcast. We are a company called JSL Solutions. And quickly and thoroughly, Steve, tell us what JSL Solutions is.
So we currently provide three main products: StreamingChurch.tv, Church App Live, and MyFlock.com.
And those are products that have to do with streaming video, mobile apps, obviously Church App Live, and then MyFlock is a church management on the cloud.
Yes, a cloud-based church management and content management system.
And website templates and all that good stuff. So check it out. We also have another product we're coming out soon, but we're not going to tell anybody, right?
Not yet. It hopefully is going to be here very soon.
Yeah, all right. I'll wait for that. So we'll keep you hanging on pins and needles. All right, so today, what are we going to talk about?
So today we're going to talk about 6 ways to make your guest feel unwelcome.
6 ways to make your guests feel unwelcome. So normally, obviously, we're a tech company, but we have got a lot of experience in ministry. Steve and I both have been involved in church leadership and work. I've actually been on staff at churches. Steve has been on boards and leadership teams, and I've actually helped start some churches. And so we have a lot of experience in church stuff. We like to help churches get to the next level. Part of our purpose as a company is to enable churches to succeed using technology. But today, probably not a lot of technology, maybe a little bit of technology involved in this, but for the most part, it's just really hoping to enable you and encourage you. So you might want to, as we go over this list, you might want to kind of check it off. If you're a volunteer or a pastor, maybe this isn't your department or your area of ministry, but perhaps you could pass it on to some other people.
Yes. So we're going to go over 6 common mistakes that people make that can turn people away.
Right. Yeah. And here's the whole deal with this. And I think we always need to go over this. I've been doing this for years, and there's still things that I miss every once in a while with my church. And so we tend to get in a bubble, and we kind of operate out of this mentality of, okay, this is what we're doing. We've always done it this way. And the problem with that is we don't always consider what guests or visitors, experience when they come and visit our church.
Right.
We get used to certain things. We get, what do they call it?
We become very
nearsighted,
inwardly focused.
Focused, nearsighted.
Yeah, this thing's working great for me. Huh?
Yeah, blind spots.
I know where the children's area is.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's jump into this. Here are some common mistakes, 6 of them. The first one is I'm working with a church right now. When we first started, helped relaunch them, this was the number one problem on their list, and that is
they don't plan for guests.
Don't plan for guests, all right? And I hope nobody from my church is listening, or at least in leadership, they'll get upset with me. But it's really true. I mean, we didn't, I say we, or I just had come on, so it's a we thing instead of a they. But they didn't really have a plan to deal with new people coming, you know? And so we've put a plan together, and we're moving along nicely now. But if you don't plan for visitors, or you only plan for your specific role in your service, you're not going to connect with new people. And maybe you don't have a lot of new people coming, but I guarantee you've got to have some new people coming once in a while, right?
These are really obvious. I don't know. I've been to churches where you can recognize these things going on, where you feel like there's a club going on, but I don't really belong, and I'm a little confused, and I feel like I'm on the outside, and no one is interested in getting me assistance or anything.
Right.
So it reminds me of I used to go to Chuck Swindoll's church when he was in California. And the first thing you pull into the parking lot you experience is a guy standing in the parking lot holding up one finger. He goes 1 finger and 2 fingers. And he's just going 1 finger, 2 finger, and he's pointing at you going 1 finger, 2 finger. And you're going, I don't know what you're talking about. And you got to pull up to him close, roll down your window and say, I'm sorry, I'm new here. Yeah. And it was you staying for one service or two services, because it was Swindoll's church. And
you'd think they know better.
Yeah, if you're staying for two, you would they'd double park you. And if you're just for one, they'd park you in a different place. But
really,
there was a code that unless you had been there before, you didn't know what the heck they were talking about.
Wow. And so you're apologizing, you as the visitor, apologizing. I'm sorry, I'm here for the first time. Please forgive me.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, please forgive me for being here.
There's 3 people in my car, so does that mean I can't?
You're not allowed here now. Yes. Well, and that kind of goes on with the second point, and that is don't consider their pain. And so, when one of the ways we can make a guest or a visitor unwelcome is we don't really consider their pain. So it's easy to assume that somebody's experience, getting ready for church was easy. It may not have been. And so there are difficulties, when people come and visit a church, it's a big thing usually for them. We're used to going all the time and whatever, we drag ourselves there. But sometimes people are there because there's a life controlling problem and they're looking for a hope.
Yeah, and it takes a lot to get the nerve up to go to some place where you don't know anybody and you don't know what to expect. And
and so I think you got to be sensitive to people because you don't know what they're experiencing when they're coming through the door. And I mean, and I've seen this happen time and time again. I mean, there are people coming and it's almost like you're their last hope. I mean, it really is. They're just desperate for some kind of encouragement. They want to make friends. They want to get a message of hope. They want somebody to love on them, to be nice to them, because there's people, they're coming out of abusive homes or, they've got some physical issues or some emotional issues or some kind of dependency. And so we've got to kind of always remind each other that, and I've done this a few times with my team, that is, okay, just remember, there are people here that they're looking for friends and they may be hurting,
right?
And so when you don't plan for guests and then on top of that, you're not really considering what's going on in somebody's life,
right?
It can be a bad experience.
Yes,
very bad experience for people. All right. So the third point.
Don't have a process for the guests.
So this is something that many churches, I should say, fail in this area. They don't have any kind of a process. So somebody walks in the door. I've seen this happen in multiple churches, my own church as well as others. People walk in the door. Now what? They're in the door. Where do they go?
Yeah, they've got 2 kids with them and mom and dad. Yep. And they're thinking, do the kids go into the service with me? Do the kids have their own thing? How does this work?
Right. So there's a couple things you got to do here, and we can get into this a little bit later if we have time. Signage is very important, but also you should have greeters that understand these things we've been talking about already, and have the greeters willing to show them around. Taking into account if they have kids, if they don't have kids, where the kids would go. They've got to be greeters that are friendly and warm and obviously able to answer questions.
Yeah, and able to recognize that new person coming.
Recognize the new person. And so
give them some special attention.
Yeah. So, this is probably part of point number 1, planning for your guests. You've got to have a plan for them. You've got to be able to train your people to show them around and then, considering their pain.
And have like you said, a consistent process.
Yeah. And that's up to you guys. I mean, there's, my church, people walk in and there's a greeter and we show them the information table, which is right when they walk in. There used to be, when I first started there, they had the information table way on the other side. So, I mean, what good does that do if you're a new person? So we moved the information table where it's right there when people walk in. There's information on the church. There's actually somebody there manning it that gives the person a gift. They can either get the gift when they walk in or they can get it when they walk out. which is another point. Since we're on this little deal here, you might want to have somebody at an information table. If you don't have an information table, you should get one or create one, and make sure you don't clutter it, because that's another issue. Clutter on the table. Everybody has their business cards and their triathlon or whatever that they're running that they want you to support, and clean up the information table. But you should have somebody there before the service starts, as well as probably 10 or 15 minutes after the service starts.
Yeah.
Because people come late.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest challenges I have.
Yeah, they show up late and they don't know where to go, and things are already in progress.
Things are in progress.
Turn around and go back out.
Your greeters are gone. The greeter's in there because they want to hear the service or something. Yeah. So I have this issue, actually. I still have this issue. A lot of my greeters, they abandon ship. Once it's been 5 after, they're gone. They go somewhere else in the church. So you've got to have people there long enough to catch the late people. And then you should have people there after the service is over. In fact, they should be right out there as soon as the service is wrapping up. So you catch the people walking out.
Right.
And you've got them, again, not to mug them or anything, but say, hey, thanks for coming. Here's your gift for coming. If you have a first-time gift, or maybe if you're really creative, you have a second-time gift, which is what your church does, right? Your church has a second-time gift. Yeah, well, you used to.
Oh.
That's a whole nother plan. But the second-time gift used to be better than the first, and there's a strategy behind that. But we won't get into that because we'll run out of time. But there should be somebody there. We're talking about plan, and if you don't have a process,
you're right.
Have them there, especially after the service is over.
And we're going to get into, I think, a little bit the process beyond the service and beyond the visit, the first visit, and that's
we can get into that too. Yeah. But anyhow, all right. So we're moving right along here.
All right. So number 4, what is that?
Ignore they are at your service, or ignore that they're there.
Yes.
So this is another thing that really gets me peeved, and I saw this a lot when I first was working with the church I'm working with now, and they're doing so much better. But there would be people walking in, and leadership team and other people would be in the corners talking about fantasy football or basketball or, catching up with each other, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. But a new person would walk in and they were basically being ignored.
Yeah.
Nobody would go up and say, hi, thanks for coming. If you have a leadership team or a board or something, they really should be involved in this, as well as everybody as a church. But you should, not that you smother people, but you just say, hey, thanks for coming. And, you can usually pick up signals from a newer person or a newer family
on what's going on.
Yeah. If they really want to talk, they'll talk. If they just say, hey, thanks for greeting me.
I remember attending a church in college. And they had an interesting, I'll get your take on this, interesting way to handle first-time guests, in that people that had been there for a while knew the routine, but the guests didn't know the routine. And so during announcements or whatever, and they would say, okay, it's time to welcome our first-time guests. And everybody would stand up except for those that didn't know the routine, which were the new guests. So they're sitting down.
Right.
And I thought it kind of worked okay, because everyone's standing up and they're leaning over and going, hey, it must be your first time. How you doing? And they recognize them maybe more than some of the people wanted to, but it wasn't where they made them stand up, and it was where everyone else stood up. And
well, that's good that you didn't make your guests stand up by themselves. I've seen people do that. Churches do that. That's really awkward. I still don't like it, because you're still kind of putting people on the spot. What my church does, and I honestly don't like this either, but I haven't been able to convince anybody to fix it. We do have music. We have a little break of announcements, and then we ask everybody to stand up and greet each other. I still don't like that, but at least we're asking everybody to do it. It's not my favorite thing. I would rather not have anybody stand up. But that's just me.
Yeah, maybe it's a guy thing, huh?
Yeah, maybe it's an introvert thing too.
Yeah, could be.
If you're an introvert. I mean, I actually had somebody come visit us. Well, Scott Knight. Scott came to our church and visited, and he hated that.
Oh, yeah.
He hated it. He loved it. He enjoyed everything else. He hated having to stand up. And everybody was standing up. It wasn't just him as a visitor. Everybody was, but he still didn't like it. And I don't blame them. But sometimes we'll do a podcast on this later, but sometimes change takes time.
Right. So
you can't
we're talking about
everybody.
ignoring them, and these are ways to probably give them a little more attention than they wanted. So there's probably a happy balance.
Yeah, we're getting off track here a little bit, but
you don't want to ignore them.
But you don't want to completely ignore people.
Right.
And so it's just ignoring them is just not a good thing. And yet many churches do this. And we just, again, to fix that, you really have to work on telling your people and encouraging your people these things we already talked about. Hey, there's new people coming. Be sensitive. Those kind of things.
You don't want to put a sticker on them when they show up and then parade them around.
Somebody else had that idea too, and believe me, it's a bad idea. In my opinion, it is. Anyhow, maybe people listening think it's great, but I don't. All right. So as we move on here, we're doing plenty good as far as time here. The fifth way to make your guest feel uncomfortable or unwelcome would be do not provide any information on next steps.
Yeah. So, and what do you mean by next steps?
Well, so this kind of ties in with the information table. Is when people come, they may actually like your church, and they may want to know, okay, how can I be more involved? What's going on in the future?
What's my next step for relationship with this place? Kind of thing.
I mean, if you have, a lot of churches have what they call small groups, community groups. Mm-hmm. We call ours community groups. You should encourage people if they're really interested in your church. Say, hey, we've got a small group next Tuesday or next Wednesday at 7. So I would encourage you to have maybe information somewhere on your table, information table or something that says, here's what's happening during the week.
Yeah, and there's going to be a process for for any new guests. They're going to come and hang in the back and kind of check it out the first week, and then they may come back the next week, and then the third week they may want to start getting more involved, and so there's a progression of involvement.
Yeah, and for some people it might be right away. For some people it could be months.
Right.
But there still needs to be some kind of a process in place. Like if you have membership, have information available when the next membership class is, or if you have another class that's something like that. So one of the things that we talk a lot about in our church is we actually do it in the service. There's a time where we kind of welcome everybody, and we always say take the 3-week challenge. And we want to encourage you to come here 3 times. And we guarantee you that after 3 times, you're going to love this place. And we kind of make fun, because obviously not everybody's going to love it. But we try to encourage people to come 3 times. And hopefully if they come 3 times, they'll if they had a bad experience once, maybe they'll come back and it'll be better, But again, you should have some kind of a process. And it doesn't have to be real formal. It can be very informal, but something where people realize, okay, here's how I can get plugged in a little better when I'm ready to. And again, everybody's different. We have a kind of a connection card that we have, and we encourage everybody to fill out that connection card. Your church has that too.
Oh yeah.
And we actually encourage people to fill the card out. If they want to get our newsletter, our electronic newsletter, they can check a box. They can put their email on there. There's even some boxes if this is my first time, my second time, my third time, I'm looking for a church family, don't bother me or whatever it might be. That's part of the process. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have a connection card or something in your program that people can check off and give you their name and address. And again, like you're saying, some people won't. So, and we have that a lot. People come and they don't want to give you any information, but maybe eventually they will.
Right.
So, you've got to have some kind of a thing in place, a system, even if it's loose, at least you have something where you can begin to connect with people.
So that was number 5.
It's number 5 as we roll on.
Number 6.
Number 6, do not do any follow-up. That's talking about we're using the negative here as far as making your guests feel unwelcome.
Yes.
Don't do any follow-up if you don't want them to feel welcome. And what we mean by follow-up is, there's several things you can do here. And again, this is not going to fit everybody, but it might be something you could do. Maybe a couple of these things you could do for your church.
Yeah.
So
I remember some of I had just gotten married. So it was quite a few moons ago, and we were visiting a new church, and they had a process for the follow-up that involved the pastor coming to your house.
Yeah, that's common actually in some circles.
Yeah, this was a while ago, and we were committed to the church. We kind of, we liked the church, but the idea of the pastor coming to actually our apartment at the time, and it was a little daunting. We were felt like the Pope was going to come into my world and
hide the beer the pastor's ear.
Yeah, yes. It was like, yeah, you don't know this guy. He taught a really great sermon, but you don't know what he's going to be like. But it actually worked out really well for us. But it was an intimidating process.
Well, and that's one of the things on the list here. But I would say that's very common in the Midwest. And especially in the South, there's still churches doing that. In fact, I would wager that there's probably some people listening to this podcast right now, and that's what their church does. They do. The pastor comes and visits because it's kind of an old school thing. And again, if it works, great. It's not something that I think is the greatest thing in the world to do. I don't like the idea because for the very reasons you mentioned. But for some people it works, and some churches it's fine.
Right. It was a little intimidating, but it worked out. It worked out okay.
Yeah. Well, here's some ways you can do follow up.
All right.
And
so we've got 5 ways to do follow up. Is that right?
Yeah, at least 5 ways. As my battery's running out here on my computer. So some things here to consider. One would be to give them a call, and so again, if you have a connection card or some way to capture their information, and if they give you their phone number, then you could give them a call. Now, the way my church does this, I'm not saying everybody has to do this, but the way my church does this is we actually have a member of our leadership team for an entire month. That person is kind of the one that makes the call. Mm-hmm. So we don't get that many visitors. We might get 1 or 2 visitors a week, maybe. We're a small church. So that person might give those. And the truth is today, in our age today, we have caller ID. And I don't know for sure, but I would wager to say that most of the time when somebody makes a call, they get voicemail because, the other person doesn't know who it is. They're unfamiliar with the number, but that's still okay. You can still leave a message saying, hey, this is, Blaine from blah, blah church. I'm on the leadership team. Just wanted to say thanks for coming and visit us. If you have any questions, give us a call.
Right.
That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
And so that works fine, I think.
Right.
As a possibility. And so the other thing would be some thank you notes, which is something that I think your pastor does this. I think he still does this. It's a handwritten one. Mm-hmm. So we don't do this. My church, we just send an email. Again, if they've given us on the connection card, if they've given us an email, we just send an email.
And say, hey, thanks for showing up.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We're glad you came. We actually have a little first-time guest survey. We use Google surveys, Google Forms, and we have a little 4-question survey that there's a link in the email to say, hey, thanks for coming. Hope you had a great time. If you need anything, let us know. And by the way, we'd love it if you took our survey. You can be anonymous,
right? And
they can click on a link and they can answer 4 questions or 5 questions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an option. But the handwritten thing is kind of nice if you're able to get their actual physical address.
Yeah.
Handwritten would be a nice little thing because it does say, okay, I spent a little bit of time here writing this note out.
Right, exactly.
So it's an option.
And then the number 3 option.
This is the one you mentioned.
Yeah, well, I guess.
Right.
Well, it's outlined as face-to-face, and typically it doesn't have to be the pastor.
Right,
I probably would have been less intimidated if it was, just somebody from the leadership team or coming over.
Okay.
But I was just like, the pastor's coming. I don't think I ever had a pastor at my house. It was just,
I don't think I've ever done that myself. I've been involved in ministry, for
and it's before I
don't think I've ever done that.
Got to know. Actually, most of my best friends now are all pastors or former pastors. But back then, I don't think I'd ever had. And you had this aura of like, ooh, this guy's going to be really different. Yeah, so the face-to-face is the option. Either having someone from the leadership team or the hospitality team or whatever, or the pastor following up.
Well, and you could do, and this is kind of a subtitle to this face-to-face point, is you could, if, an option here would be if the person's really friendly, if it's their first time and you're standing in the lobby talking to them, and they seem really friendly and they want to get to know the church better, you could say, hey, we'll take out the coffee. You could do it there, or maybe if it's their second or third time, hey, we'd love to get together with you, take out the coffee. And that way it's in a neutral place. Right. It's not in their home. And you could, meet with them there. Now, I've done that before, actually, where somebody's come a few times and I've taken them out for coffee or something or whatever. And that's worked out pretty good. So that's a good way to follow up with visitors. Okay, we're almost out of time here. The fourth point, door deliveries. So that's a point of that's kind of like Amazon or UPS or whatever. Knock on their door and leave a gift. Leave a gift or a card, a little thank you gift, saying, hey, thanks for coming. You gave us your address. We know where you live now. And so
we drop it off and head on out.
Yeah, you could do that. And that could be a nice little thing, depending again on the culture of your community.
Right.
I was in a small little community years ago in Kansas, and that probably would have fit fine.
Yeah.
Not sure it would here in Tucson, but maybe it would. Okay.
Right.
And then we're running out of time, so I'll go over the fifth way you can make people feel welcome.
Or how to follow up.
Follow up, I should say, yeah. And that would be social media messages. So if you're able to, contact them on Facebook, give them a little message.
Yeah.
If they actually are pretty...
Make sure you got the right person.
Yeah, you got to do that.
This pastor saying, thanks for coming. I don't remember being there.
Yeah. Or Twitter. Some people have Twitter accounts, and you could direct message them on Twitter. Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
You could do a lot of different things there.
Right.
Some options to have. So anyhow... So I'd love to hear some feedback from some folks listening today. Any feedback on ways to make your guests feel unwelcome, or even on this second part that we talked about, ways to maybe follow up. We'd love to hear your feedback. Just send us an email, support@StreamingChurch.tv. Check us out on iTunes, Church Solutions Podcast. Subscribe, give us a great review, or maybe not a good review. We'd love to get a review either way. Check us out on newmediaministries.tv. Or what else? We're on YouTube, right?
That is it.
Audio's on YouTube. Look for StreamingChurch.tv. All right, Steve, we're out of time.
All righty.
Thanks for
great being here.
Yeah, thanks for jumping in on this thing. Folks, you have yourself a great day. Thanks for listening to the Church Solutions Podcast. He's Steve Lacey. I'm Phil Thompson. We'll catch you again for another edition of this podcast. Have a great day.